Alright, welcome back. This is going to be Unit 2, Day 14. Some reminders before we get started. Please make sure that you have your history notebook and you're taking notes as you move through the video. And please make sure you complete the vocabulary for this video, which will be on the next slide and down in the description. So let's go ahead and get started. So our key terms for today are going to be Ming Dynasty, Forbidden City, Emperor Yongle, Beijing, Manchu, the Qing Dynasty, Emperor Kangxi, Emperor Qianlong, Son of Heaven, Neo-Confucianism again, a Meritocracy, and Matteo Ricci. Key concepts for today are going to be the political, economic, and social characteristics of China during the early modern period, and Chinese isolationism. So let's talk about the Ming Dynasty. So the Ming Dynasty is going to be the dynasty, again, that drives out the Mongols from the control of China. It was eventually, at first, a peasant rebellion, but eventually it did establish its own dynasty. They created a centralized government, which restored Chinese cultural traditions, restored the Confucian bureaucracy, civil service examination. It was very Neo-Confucian. The Ming Dynasty, as well as the Qing Dynasty, will attempt to recreate the past, not improve upon it, and this leads to stagnation and kind of rejection of cultural and innovative ideas. This is also going to be the time where they move the capital to Beijing, which is what the capital of China is today. And they're going to build a city called the Palace of the Emperor within Beijing called the Forbidden City. This is really for emperors, bureaucrats, high wealth, high influence people. They're going to extend the Grand Canal to the north to bring food to the city. This is a massive public works project, which requires a lot of people. The most famous emperor of the Ming Dynasty is going to be Emperor Yongle, who's going to create one of the world's largest encyclopedias, which will be the world's largest encyclopedia well into the 20th century. And it kind of tells information like an encyclopedia. It gives information over everything that they know. Now, but Mr. Leveridge just sounds great. What happens? Well, this is going to be the big decline of the Ming is going to be the centralized government runs very poorly under weak emperors. Public work started to fall into despair. Famines, peasant rebellions in the 1630s and 40s. Rebellions by army units opens the door to nomadic invasions. This should sound very familiar because it's straight out of the dynastic cycle from very early on. So the nomadic Manchu invaders lead to the final Ming collapse in 1644. Well, who are the Manchus? Well, the Manchus are the kind of last kind of remnants of the Mongols. They're nomadic, yes, and they conquer China in 1644, and this is going to be the last big Chinese dynasty period that we're going to talk about, because in 1911 it's going to collapse. So this one lasts for a good 300 years, almost 300 years. Well, the Manchus are nomadic invaders. They originate from Manchuria, Mongolia area. They're the last of the steppe nomads, the last of the kind of Mongol nomadic dynasties, and they proclaimed the Qing Dynasty. The Manchus are going to remain as an isolated ethnic elite. They forbade the intermarriage with Chinese. They forbade Chinese immigration to Manchuria and Mongolia. But unlike the Mongols, they are going to permit Confucian scholars to run the government, and they're going to maintain the Confucian system. And really, they're really going to maintain Neo-Confucianism in China and allow it to kind of run. Issue is they're at the same time as they're doing all this, they're not advancing culturally or politically or kind of technology, which we'll get to in a moment. So we have two big emperors you need to know for the Qing Dynasty. Emperor Kangxi, he is a Confucian scholar. He's an effective, enlightened ruler. Under his rule, he's going to conquer Taiwan. He's going to extend control into Central Asia, Tibet, and the Xinjiang, which again is in central, what is today Central China, what is then was Central Asia. Our next one is going to be Emperor Qianlong. He's a sophisticated and learned ruler, poet, and artist. He's going to, during his reign, force Vietnam, Burma, and Nepal to become vassal states of China, force them to pay tribute. During Emperor Qianlong, China was peaceful, prosperous, and extremely, extremely powerful. Now, let's kind of talk about the governmental structure and how the government works. So, both the Ming and the Qing dynasties seek to reestablish the Sui, Tang, and Song system. This is going to be a big Neo-Confucian predominant system, and it's not. But the problem is, it's not flexible. It's not. It's very rigid, and it doesn't change, it doesn't evolve, leading to it not being as vibrant or as powerful or as kind of prosperous as they would want it to be. Similar to before, the emperor is considered the son of heaven, and he has heavenly powers to maintain the order of the earth in China, and making sure that it's effective. People have to kowtow in their presence. To kowtow is to prostrate yourself or bow down to where your forehead is touching the ground while you're bowing. They're going to again, they've reintroduced the civil service examination. The civil service exam is intensely competitive. Few are chosen for government positions. Others could become local leaders or tutors, but over time you're going to see an increase in cheating to become in these higher government officials. But at the same time, the Confucian curriculum fostered common values and traditions. Confucianism really hasn't changed. All it's done is kind of mixed with Buddhism. So let's talk about the patriarchal system. The Ming will restore the social systems, and the Qing will maintain those traditions. Now, the basic units of Chinese society is going to be the family. Highest value is going to be filial piety, which is going to be respect for your elders and making sure that the children are well taken care of. Confucian duties of loyalty and reciprocity, taking care of your parents, become extremely important. We have an important function of families, clans, extended families, to make sure that the family unit is maintained. In terms of gender relations, it's going to be a strict patriarchal system with control over all females. Parents preferred boys over girls. Marriage was to continue the male line, not the female lines. Female infanticide, which is where they kill female babies, became extremely common. And that's going to stay common well into the 20th century. Widows are often encouraged to commit suicide after the wife dies, very similar to India. Foot binding is going to increase, especially, and the foot binding starts to target younger and younger women. The lowest status you could be in a family would be a of age, unmarried woman, right? Because you do not contribute anything in the Chinese system if you were an unmarried of age woman. So it becomes extremely patriarchal. So let's talk about the social systems. So in the emperor aspect, kind of this pyramid, we have the dynastic family at the very top. This is going to be controlled by the emperor's family, wives, plural, children, relatives. Under the Qing, this group was Manchu, not Chinese. Underneath that, you have the privileged classes, scholar bureaucrats who pass the civil service. It's going to be scholar gentry, landed gentry who own land, and this group is going to occupy the highest government and intellectual positions. Underneath that, you have peasants, which is going to be the largest class, also known as the mean class or the mean peoples. And they're esteemed by the Neo-Confucianism and Confucius for their honest labor. Underneath them, you have artisans and other skilled labor. They had some economic status, but you're not as well respected as peasants because you're using other people's, or it's considered easier work than like field work. And then not at the bottom anymore, but near the bottom you have merchants. They're powerful and wealthy, but they had little social status because they made wealth through money and other people's work. In the lower classes, we have slaves, servants, entertainers, and prostitutes. These are going to be the absolute lowest classes. Now, due to all of this other things happening, right, we do have a growth in population. Due to an intense garden-style agriculture and American food crops such as maize, sweet potatoes, peanuts that grew fairly easily, you see a massive population growth in 500 years from 80 million to 300 million, which is insane. Right? Manufacturing and trade benefited from abundant, cheap labor. They exported large quantities of silk, porcelain, lacquer, and tea. They're compensated for this exports by silver bullion, which is silver money, which is in great supply in Europe, because of the Spanish silver mining. Kangxi, the Emperor Kangxi of the Qing, is going to begin a policy of strict control of foreign contact. He's going to limit European control of trade to 2 ports at Macau and Kangxi. And due to this limitation, they're actually going to kind of start resisting technological advancements. China, along with much of Asia, was a very labor-intensive economy, meaning that you worked hard because of Confucianism. The Ming and Qing dynasties are considered technology disruptive because it made work easier, thus putting people out of work, which goes against the entire Confucian system. So they would actually start to fall behind technologically due to this. So tradition and new cultural influences. Popular culture extended to new novels, romances, travel adventures. Imperial cultural projects such as encyclopedia and libraries began to really help. And, of course, with the big expansion of Christianity and Islam, Christianity comes to China. The Portuguese bring Catholicism to China. And their courts, Matteo Ricci, an Italian Jesuit, is in the Ming court. He's going to impress the Chinese emperor with European science and math. Popular mechanical devices such as harpsichords, glass prisms, and clocks. And then we have, well, the problem is Confucianism and Christianity, they don't get along. Jesuits respectful of Chinese traditions, but won few converts. Chinese had problems with the exclusivity of Christianity. In Confucianism, you could worship spirits, and the spirits would guide you and your ancestors. In Christianity, there's one God, and you only worship that one God. Franciscan and Dominican missionaries criticized Jesuit tolerance, which leads to them fighting over it. When the Pope upheld the critics, which would be the Dominican and Franciscan, Emperor Kangxi denounced Christianity and pushed it out of China. And Christianity isn't... there's Christians in China, but it's not a predominant culture in China at the moment. That's what we're going to end for today. Please make sure that you're completing a vocabulary for today, and that you're following along with your notes. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in class.